everyone must be a part of this global digital compact. Every man, every woman, everything, every entity, everything should be there, because in that way we can govern you and manipulate you, and also they have this. We will have this commons that they rule over. So we have to go in another direction.
You're listening to the Corbett Report.
Welcome back, friends. Welcome back to the Corbett Report. I am James Corbett of CorbettReport.com, and a conversation that is coming to you. It's being recorded on the 27th of June, 2023. And as we sit here in June of 2023, you might be able to cast your mind back all the way to April of 2022, when I penned an editorial on Here's What's Next on the Globalist Calendar. And I noted in an entry on September 2023 something about the Summit of the Future. And in that editorial, I said, last September, as in September 2021, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres launched an 85-page report entitled Our Common Agenda. According to a write-up from Democracy International, the report offers a roadmap for upgrading the UN and calls for reinvigorated multilateralism, renewed solidarity, stronger consideration of future generations, and the New World Order. Oh, I might have put that last bit in there, but at any rate, you can imagine what was in that document, but you don't have to imagine it or take my word for it. You can read it for yourself, which of course I will link up. But yes, of course, embedded in that Our Common Agenda document that was released in September of 2021 was the proposal for a Summit of the Future, which will be convened simultaneously with the UN General Assembly in New York in September of 2023. And checking my calendar, yeah, that's coming up in a few months. So you better believe that the UN technocrats are getting ready for this Summit of the Future and everything that it entails, and are working feverishly behind the scenes to put together their common agenda ideas. And so we are going to discuss those in greater detail today, because as it turns out, yes, there are a number of policy briefs that have emerged in recent weeks and months that are probably worth your time and attention if you are interested in the plans and schemes of the globalists. And so we're going to pick up the thread from a researcher who has not appeared on the program before. His name is Jakob Nordangård, and he is a researcher, an author, a lecturer, and a musician who has penned a couple of articles that I would like to bring to your attention. For example, an article from a couple of weeks ago called What's Next to the Moon? An Apex Body and Digital ID to Rule Us All, talking about 3 policy briefings that have been released in relation to this common agenda. Also, The Ministry of Truth Revisited, which is at Dr. Jakob Nordangård's Substack, which of course will be linked along with his blog. But without further ado, let's bring him on the program. Dr. Jakob Nordangård, thank you very much for coming on today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, we are going to have a really interesting conversation, I have no doubt, because these are some really crazy documents that we're going to be talking about. But before we get into the meat and potatoes of that, this is your first time on the show, so I would like to introduce you to the audience. And I will, of course, direct people to your blog, which has an About page with some biographical details. Jakob Nordangård is a Swedish researcher, author, lecturer, musician, a PhD in technology and social change, Master of Social Science in Geography, and Master of Social Science in Culture and Media Production, founder and chairman of the Swedish foundation Stiftelsen Faros, excuse my pronunciation, and CEO of the independent publishing and media production company Faros Media Productions. Has previously worked as a graphic designer, editor, media producer, press officer, politician, senior lecturer, and is also the band leader, singer, and songwriter of the doom metal band Wardenclyffe, which is the most Scandinavian bio that I've ever read, and I mean that in a good way. So, fill us in on those details. Who are you? Where do you come from? Why are you writing the things that you're writing?
Maybe it could be it's a long answer to that, I think, but who am I? I'm just a curious guy, and always been wanting to know how the world works, and that has been the mission since I was a child. I was very much into geography as a child, and I wanted to map understanding of all the world. started with name geography, and then I extended this. And as a grown up, I started to map people and organizations, and I wanted to know how everything was connected, and also who's running the show. I think that's kind of early. I started to have these questions as a teenager, and I studied the political systems at the time. I mean, I'm 54 now, so when I was a teenager, it was we had still the Cold War and United States against Soviet Union and everything, and I remember I wrote about this, and I thought that this big capitalist monopolistic system, it leads to the same direction as this communist internationalist. It was kind of the same. So I started to question all these things, and also this that we have like it's black and white in politics all the time. So and I started to dig from there, and I also started with music, writing lyrics about how politics works. And after a couple of years, I went into university and started to investigate more or less energy. Energy was very interesting, and that led me into the power politics of energy. And I went into researching peak oil. And this was in the early 2000s, just after 9/11. And I found a lot of things that was very, I mean, it didn't change my view from when I was a teenager. It just confirmed more or less. And eventually I started as a PhD student. And I wrote a doctoral thesis about European Union biofuel policy. And that was very interesting because it led me to understand how lobbyism works, and behind the scene politics, and what kind of organizations that are behind the scenes and pulling strings and so on. And also, I wrote a lot about climate change and how climate change became the big question, the big problem that we were supposed to solve, and also found these connections between the oil business and the climate change policy. And I wrote and published a work about this in 2009. And it wasn't easy after that at the university, because it's not popular to investigate these things, and especially in Sweden. Sweden is so tightly, I mean, the climate agenda, the climate issue. Stockholm has been the capital, more or less, about the climate science. And
in fact, in that editorial I was referencing before about the globalist calendar, there was an entry on Stockholm plus 50, which of course also took place in Stockholm recently to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the 1972 Stockholm summit. So yes, again. I was in Stockholm at that time. Yeah, so, right. And I gave a lecture myself about Stockholm conference. Well, it sounds like we have similar research interests and maybe different backgrounds, but we have.
I remember I've written a book called Rockefeller Controlling the Game about, and that's at the same time when I was finished with, I think you published your very very good movies about the oil.
Yeah, the big oil documentaries. Exactly.
So
right.
It's just it was just a confirmation of everything that I've been studying for.
Absolutely. And having a copy of that book, I can attest that there are a lot of people who write about these subjects that are just kind of cribbing from other people. But a researcher can tell another researcher based on their references, and I can tell, oh, Jakob Nordangård has really done some research on this. So that's why I am turning to you tonight to get some more information about the latest UN proposals, policy briefings, whatever is coming down the pipeline. Okay, let's set the table for people. Again, our common agenda is this idea that has been launched. It's another sort of great reset sort of framework around which to lobby for essentially the same agenda. It's always the same agenda, but they put it under different garb from time to time. And now UN Secretary General Guterres is pushing our common agenda. And under that framework, there has been a number of policy briefings published. You have recently talked about a few of them. A global digital compact, reforms of the international financial architecture, and the future of outer space governance being the latest ones that you have talked about. Run us through just briefly what these policy briefings are and what they cover, and then we'll go into them in some greater detail.
Yes, it's a big topic. I mean, these policy briefs, they are. The thing is, the first we had our common agenda report, and it was. And it's about 12 commitments to achieve the Agenda 2030. And these policy briefs, and then these suggestions came on the consultation and from member states and so on, and the influential actors. And after that, we had these policy briefs presented about key issues in this agenda. And one of the most important things is this global digital compact, because everything is about the digitization, and everything is about data, and that's the cornerstone of this, and data that it's connected to, of course, the Sustainable Development Goals. In order to achieve these goals, we have to have people's data, and we also it's interesting with this global digital compact as well, because United Nations they talk about the global commons, and because United Nations should be the governing bodies of these commons, they say, and they have had responsibilities, and that's like the atmosphere or the oceans, and we have also Antarctica and space. That's commons that we have to govern together according to United Nations. But we also have another common, and that's the cyber realm, the cybersphere. So, because that's also spans all over the borders. And as we can see with what's happening with information now, and what United Nations sees as a problem, that is how we have a lot of disinformation and misinformation and hate speech and these things. So this has to be governed. And because we say the cybersphere is a global commons, they should do it. So that's a big thing in this digital commons or global compact. So, and I write about this as well, that they more or less wanted to create a kind of a ministry of truth to govern this. And we have also a lot of other proposals, and we have this with financial architecture. Financial architecture is more or less about adjusting everything to achieve Agenda 2030. Everything ends up in this. So what they wanted to do as well is creating, as they state in this policy brief about financial architecture, an apex body, because they don't think that the old institutions are fit for the challenges in the future. So this policy brief about the financial future it's a huge report. It's a lot of things that in this report, and it's hard to grasp everything. But it cooks down to these things with the managing the SDGs and financing the SDGs. So and also surveillance of financial transactions. That's another thing, because and that's what we discussed also in Stockholm, that you mentioned, Stockholm plus 50, and they state that this is about combating illegal transactions and terrorism and whatever, but it ties into achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, and they have these things called the Every Action Counts initiative, and that is a kind of a social credit system that they want to achieve. So everything, all these things goes together into this. And also the third policy brief that I mentioned there is space, the space agenda. The space agenda is much about surveillance with satellites, because we state this. They have in each of these policy briefs, they have all the Sustainable Development Goals and how they are connected to this topic or this policy brief. And if you go into this with space, it's a lot of things they say they can do, and everything has to do with surveillance and tracking of goods and the people and everything. That's a central part of it. And we also have some initiatives connected to this, because it's a part of the partnership deal between United Nations and the World Economic Forum. So we have initiatives like Climate Trace. You know the Climate Trace, James, with Al Gore.
Al Gore, right? Yes, and no more hiding, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, creepy.
It's kind of creepy to watch all these kind of commercials for this agenda, because they state what we are going to do, and it
isn't really hidden behind too many walls. No more hiding, kind of. Yeah, hey guys, no more hiding. We're showing you what we're about to do. Okay. That's the 30,000 foot view. Let's start drilling down on some details here, and let's go one by one through these, because there's a lot of craziness in here. But let's start with that a global digital compact, an open, free, and secure digital future for all, which is exactly like it says on the cover there. What are they aiming at? It says purpose of this policy brief. The present brief proposes the development of a global digital compact that would set out principles, objectives, and actions for advancing an open, free, secure, and human-centered digital future, one that is anchored in universal human rights and that enables the attainment of the Sustainable Development Goals. What could be wrong with that? And as you point out in your article, they do make actually a good point about the economic ramifications of the digitization of everything. They frame it in relation to SDG number 1, which we all know off by heart is ending poverty, right? And so they say, for example, digital IDs linked with bank or mobile money accounts can improve the delivery of social protection coverage and serve to better reach eligible beneficiaries. Digital technologies may help to reduce leakages, errors, and costs in the design of social protection programs. Isn't that great? So, at any rate, they do point to the fact that digital technologies are accelerating the concentration of economic power in an ever smaller group of elites and companies, aka big tech, right? The combined wealth of technology billionaires, $2.1 trillion in 2022 is greater than the annual gross domestic product of more than half of the group of 20 economies. You know what? That is actually a good point. Digitization has meant the creation of this incredible billionaire superclass that is now having more and more power over greater and greater sections of our lives as everything becomes digitized. So what is the UN's answer to this? Can you tell us who is on the UN Secretary General's high-level panel on digital cooperation?
Yeah. First we have Melinda Gates, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and I mean, she used to work on Microsoft, and now divorced from Bill, of course, but and also Jack Ma from the Alibaba Group. Also, I mean, he was at the board of WEF. And we know also that Alibaba's, they have this company under them that's called the Ant Group. And the Ant Group was the developer of a social credit system in China. And these people, I think we could state that they are part of this little elite group that has gained a lot of money and power during the digitization. So I mean, who are they hiring?
Exactly. Who are they entrusting to solve this problem that they have created? It's the people who created the problem, right? It's absolute insanity.
That's the same thing, always.
Of course. I mean, again, if we were to take them at face value, that they're really concerned about this economic concentration, then why are you hiring the exact people who are the beneficiaries of this economic concentration to solve the problem that benefits them? It's nonsense on its face, but we're expected to believe this. Was there anything from that policy brief that jumped out at you in particular about some of their specific suggestions about how they're going to achieve this global digital compact?
Well, the thing is, what really grabbed my mind was that this was very similar to the proposals that came for each of these Sustainable Development Goals. It was more or less like a report I read, like it's more than 3 years ago, I think. WEF report called Unlocking the Technologies for the Global Goals. But when I saw that the first time, I had to write an article about it because it was so, what is this? now we're really stating what we're going to do. I mean, those who have believed all these nice sounding goals, when they see this, and it's just and this unlocking goals, it was all these fourth industrial revolution solutions to achieve SDGs, and all about digital ID and surveillance and mad suggestions, and it's just like they have put this WF report just in this. We just copy paste everything.
Almost as if it's the same thing, just a different branding or a different flavor of it. But yes, clearly some similarities, shall we say, in agendas. And of course, it always comes back to the same questions. Oh, the misinformation and disinformation, online hate. How can we ensure that this will not happen? And how can we empower governments to take care of these problems, etc., etc. And of course, the Global Digital Compact is going to give you all these wonderful universal human rights, except maybe not the right to, say what you want. Freedom of speech will not be part of those rights that will be heavily protected amongst this Global Digital Compact that will be stewarded over by the likes of Melinda Gates and Jack Ma and people along those lines.
Yeah. You will be given the right to say the things that the United Nations want you to say.
Yes. Which, for the 8 millionth time, I'm going to repeat it, people will be sick of hearing this, but the Universal Declaration of Human Rights gives you article after article of all these beautiful, wonderful sounding rights that people supposedly have. And, freedom from poverty and education and all these things. But of course, what is it? Article 29, paragraph 3, is it? But of course, you can't exercise these rights in any way that goes against the will of the United Nations. So yes, you can have all the wonderful rights unless you're against us, in which case you have no rights. And that's the foundation of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, aka what UN is calling human rights. So we know the absolute nonsense that this is based upon. All right, let's move to global international financial architecture, which is such a, as you say, this is such a vast subject, and so many different
huge.
So many different loopholes and different things that people can get down. But of course, what this is fundamentally based on is that they're showing that, the financial architecture as it exists is all this mishmash of these various organizations and bodies and groups, and some of them are quasi-governmental, and some of them are non-governmental, some of them are standard-setting bodies, some are groups of the Bank for International Settlements, for example, the International Monetary Fund, all of these things, but it's kind of chaotic, and we need a global economic governance structure. And the one that really jumps out at me in this policy brief, they talk about various action-oriented recommendations for reforming the international financial and tax architecture. But the one that jumps out at me particularly, because I've been following this for many years, and I think it is essentially, when we talk about global government, this is the linchpin. It's in this document on page 3, down in subparagraph F. Global tax architecture for equitable and inclusive sustainable development, blah, 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 for warm fuzzies and pink unicorn rainbows. But the point is, global tax architecture. Once they get the global tax architecture in place, that is the global government. And it doesn't matter if people understand that, or if they recognize that, if there is some sort of place in wherever, Stockholm or Brussels or anywhere else where they situate a headquarters, it doesn't matter. The global tax architecture is the key to global government. And I think that's part of this policy brief. There's a lot, as you say, that's in here, but anything from this document that sticks out at you in particular?
Well, I mentioned this also. I mean, with the taxation, they also want to have, every watch over every transaction, more or less. Transparency with transactions. We know what that means, and I think we could see that this will lead to CBDC in the end. And also that is interesting to follow this with this apex body, because I've been following this for many years now, and this thing with because they have the G20 system that they had to create, because they wanted to make United Nations as a world government from the beginning. We know that, but they didn't really succeed with it. But in order to get the system that they have wanted, they created the G20 out of a crisis. The financial crisis nation, then the great global financial crisis in 2008. And I remember from reading these documents at that time how they came with suggestions on how to G20 would eventually move into United Nations headquarters, and it was Gordon Brown talked about it, Gorbachev talked about it, and they also had this in a couple of suggestions in 2012, I think it was. And now they have moved to that point, and they say that now we're going to have a meeting every second year, a biennial meeting where the G20 has its meeting in United Nations, and that will form this apex body, already, if you go into G20 and everything what we're doing, it's interesting to. I mean, most people most people don't know what G20 is, but those who know, they think it's a kind of a leaders meeting once a year. But it's a huge. It's like as huge as looking through this policy brief, with everything that has to do with finance of the world. That's what G20 is doing. But it's and all these powerful institutions are a part of the G20 and have these hundreds of meetings every year about this new world architecture, financial and everything. So they have just so now we're just putting it together. Where they have, it was the intention from the beginning, of course. So and we talked about that this would be kind of an economic security council for the world. So I thought that was very interesting to see that these suggestions that they have worked so long with now, they put it in, and it came after this pandemic, and everything is based on because of the pandemic. So it was such a perfect trigger for them to achieve this.
Almost like it was a great reset. And in fact, they do actually obliquely mention that on page 25. Reset the rules for the financial system to promote stability with sustainability, blah, blah, blah. So yes, the reset word is another one of the catchwords that does certainly make its way into this document.
Yeah, of course. And this was the United Nations Great Reset. That's what I see it as. Yeah. It's the answer. Guterres declared the Great Reset together with Schwab and together with
King Charles.
King Charles.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I still think Schwab probably won with the branding because the Great Reset probably is a better brand than our common agenda. But, we'll see who ends up at the top of the pile.
Agenda, it sounds better. It's our common.
Well, true. Agenda. I think the word agenda is probably the sticking point. But anyway, I'm not going to give them free PR advice. Let's move on to the other document, For All Humanity, the Future of Outer Space Governance, which is as ridiculously ambitious as it sounds. And you point out the fact that the Sustainable Development Goals that they're working off of here, and the way that this is going to fulfill these Sustainable Development Goals, like goal number 11 on sustainable cities and communities, goal number 12 on responsible consumption and production, goal number 13 on climate action, goal number 14 on life below water, are all based around the ways that space-based platforms can be used for monitoring and surveilling of everything on Earth at all times, essentially. So, for example, space is utilized for urban planning and smart, sustainable cities, which is vital for climate action, as cities are responsible for more than 70% of global emissions. Identifying heat spots in cities. Oh, that sounds okay. Monitoring the cooling effects of green spaces. Oh, okay. Analyzing air quality. Sure. And crime trends are among other examples of how space improves life in urban areas. So you're going to examine crime trends from space. How are you going to do that? Oh, I understand. It's going to be constant satellite monitoring of everything. And for people who need a sort of visualization of this, I did cover this a few years ago now. I was watching some of the Super Bowl commercials and analyzing them for the propaganda. And I recall one that was Microsoft involved in some sort of project to literally map and detail every blade of grass in the forest and to be able to monitor everything in the entire world in real time. And you start getting Bill Gates, for example, sponsoring satellite companies that are going to be monitoring from space, and you got Al Gore and Climate Trace. Yeah, I think I do see a common sort of thread that's weaving its way through all of these space-based solutions to our sustainable development problems, quote unquote. But why don't you elaborate on that?
What's more to say? I mean, it's just so stupid, everything. That's what I've been thinking all the time. But they also have this other things, space becomes and it's always important for them, because I've written a lot about these futuristic ideas, that is the basis of this, and you can really see it in our common agenda. The ideas from H.G. Wells, for example, with a world brain, and but also these space dreams that all these futurists has had. That is the big thing, the big achievement, to go out and explore space and conquer space and everything. And but I think it's also the thing with they want to achieve this world government, and where to go after the world government. You have to go to expand. I mean, it's for an empire have to expand. Where can you expand when you have all the world? So now they're aiming for space, and they talk about in this report also that they want to build a way station on the moon, and also moon base. How many times have you heard of this?
I've been hearing about it my entire life, and yet, oddly, I haven't seen it being done.
I remember as a child when in the 70s, it was a lot of popular press about in year 2000, we will have flying cars, and we will have a base on the moon. We will have space travel. We will can take an elevator, go out to space, and everything. And as a child, I believed that at that time. But now we've heard that.
Yeah, children do believe this, and unfortunately, there are a lot of political children out there that still believe in these myths that are being proffered by the would-be elites. Would that we could leave this conversation with the final words of your article. Wouldn't it be a more efficient measure to secure peace and the environment on this planet if this megalomaniac elite were sent on a one-way mission to Mars? That would be a great ending to this story. But unfortunately, it gets even worse, because as attentive listeners out there will remember, back in March, there was a different policy brief that was released under this Our Common Agenda framework. And you did write about it at the time. I did link to it when it came out. You had an article up in March, Emergency Platform to Manage Extreme Global Shocks, which says United Nations recently published a policy brief on the 12th commitment of Our Common Agenda, Emergency Platform. This commitment establishes the need to improve preparedness in more areas besides global health crises, such as pandemics, and will give UN extensive powers in a new crisis situation. Quote, the Emergency Platform would not be a standing body or entity, but a set of protocols that could be activated when needed. What on earth is this emergency platform that they're proposing?
This is, I think this is the worst part of this, Our Common Agenda. This is also the last of its commitments, this emergency platform. And I mean, it's more or less to create, because they state that the Earth is in a state of planetary emergency, and we have all these crises. They have in this policy brief, they mentioned 7 global crises, and that could lead to that they have to activate this platform. Many people, they talk about WHO today. And they are very concerned about what will happen and if they extend the power. I would say the emergency platform is a part of this. But it's about a lot of other areas as well. Almost everything that they can think of. So they have even put out the Black Swan event for something that will eventually happen.
Yeah.
And as Schwab said at the World Government Summit, there will certainly be a black swan.
I wonder how he knows. Yeah, let's put this on the record for people. So these are the 7 things that this emergency platform could apparently be activated for. 1, large-scale climatic or environmental events. Hey, pole shift, why not? 2, future pandemics with cascading secondary impacts. 3, high-impact events involving a biological agent, deliberate or accidental. Number 4, events leading to disruptions to global flows of goods, people, or finance. Well, that could be pretty much anything. Number 5, large-scale destructive and or disruptive activity in cyberspace, or disruptions to global digital connectivity, the cyber false flag, if you will. Number 6, a major event in outer space that causes severe disruptions to one or several critical systems on Earth. Solar flare, fake UFO invasion, who knows? And number 7, unforeseen risks, black swan events. So there you go. Basically, they're saying anything at all that we constitute to be a crisis, we could activate this platform for. And as it states, very interestingly, this is not a standing body or an entity, but a set of protocols that will involve a rapid, predictable, and structured international response, maximizing the unique convening role of the UN, catalyzing political leadership through networks of willing member states, multi-sectoral, interdisciplinary coordination across the multilateral system, multi-stakeholder engagement and accountability in the global response, and strengthened accountability for delivering against commitments and bringing coherence to the international approach. Which basically means, I think, anything they want it to mean at any time they want it to mean it. But at any rate, that's what they're laying out on the table here. So I don't even know. What are they? I mean, I don't even know how to oppose this, because it's not even going to be a body per se. It's just going to be we can control anything we want at the drop of a hat, essentially.
Yeah, but the thing is, I mean, they are before these eventual crisis could happen. We are putting together a group of actors, and they are given the protocol. So they decide upon what to do when the crisis hits, and they are not to say anything that opposes this, or say that no, this is bad, this we can do it. They have to follow the protocol, whatever it means, and act in unison. And if and they also state, okay, it will be dissolved if we solve the crisis. But they don't. I mean, if they don't solve the crisis, I mean, they could just continue with this, like in the 30s. I mean, it could happen, new things all the time. So I see this is a really the methodology to gain total power over the planet.
Yeah. And let's put in that quote that you put at the end of your article on this. It bears reminding of the Fortress World scenario from the Global Scenario Group's report, The Great Transition, The Promises and Lures of Our Times. Quote, using a revamped United Nations as their platform, a state of planetary emergency is declared. A campaign of overwhelming force, rough justice, and draconian police measures sweeps through hotspots of conflict and discontent. Wow. Yeah, bring us the fiery scourge of the United Nations to cleanse this world of the evildoers and save us from the planetary emergency. It sounds like comic book nonsense, but unfortunately, I think they really do intend something like this.
Yes, and if you go into this Global Scenario Group's report, you find how they calculated with a pandemic that would be a trigger for a big crisis that would hit Earth, and then this planetary emergency would be declared.
And so what's the name of their report again? The Great Transition. Oh, right, the Great Transition. Yeah.
Yes. And who was behind this scenarios? Who funded this? Any idea?
Well, okay. Who are the players on the table? I'm going to guess some Rockefellers were involved, maybe Gates at this point, WEF, Club of Rome, UN is involved in some manner. I don't know. Am I close to the mark here?
Rockefeller Foundation and United Nations Environmental Program. And one what's called Nippon Foundation. It's a Japanese foundation, I think. You maybe know something about it. And also, he who was the main author of this is a Club of Rome member. So, and this, if you read this, you can see that it was setting the agenda for Rockefeller Foundation's scenarios for technological, this about lockstep scenarios.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's more or less built on these scenarios because the United Nations used this, and what's unfolding it's very close to the worst of their scenarios in this report called Fortress World. And I think it's very you can just find this on internet and download it. It's very interesting to read.
This is an important part that we should underline. All of these things we are talking about are not some secret hidden document that you have to search for days or you have to have special secret access to. No, they are out there in the open with this. This is what they are willing to state on record, and it's all out there for people who just read. Just go out there and read what they are actually writing about. There is no hidden agenda. Well, I'm sure there is a hidden agenda, but at any rate, what is out there on the table is more than enough to know that, whoa, we are heading in some very dark directions here. And I think it is interesting. What is the common connecting thread amongst all of these common agenda policy briefings is in every space where you can find anything resembling anarchy, terrible anarchy, or freedom, those spaces, those liminal international intra-border spaces where there is no governance structure, they're coming in to set up a governance structure. So whether that's cyberspace, whether that's the outer space, whether that's the international financial system, well, who's the one body in control of all of this? Well, let's just make an apex body that controls it all. That is what every aspect of this agenda is aiming at. Any space where there is any sort of freedom, they're going to come in and impose their global order upon it. And I think that presents, at any rate, to my mind, that presents us with the answer to, if they are going in that direction, we should be going in the exact opposite direction. Devolving power down as close to the local as possible, and ultimately to the individual would be nice. But at any rate, moving in the opposite direction to this global compact, the global digital commons, the global apex body, etc. that they're trying to create. Do you concur with that assessment?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we have to get out of this. I mean, the thing is, they want to. They say we have to get everyone on board. Everyone must be a part of this global digital compact. Every man, every woman, everything, every entity, everything should be there, because in that way we can govern you and manipulate you, and also they have this. We will have this commons that they rule over. So we have to go in another direction, and we have to. I mean, it's. I mean, we're talking through Skype at the moment, through internet, but we have to go back to more or less the real world and be more in the real and talk to each other in the real world. Also, I mean, I think it's good that we can actually and in some way I think we have miscalculated. Because they have wanted to gain control through building up internet and everything, getting the information of everyone, and we are leaving trails everywhere and so on. But they had to give us something to achieve it, and that has made us more aware of what's going on, and also we have contact with each other all over the globe now. So that's and now I think it's a more or less a panic mode at the top, because it's very hard to control people and information. It's very, very hard. And the more they push in this direction and showing how they are, who they are, and we will just gain more out of it, I think, because every step they take now to totalitarianism, I mean, it exposes these powers. So
I am so glad that you provided that context in that, because I was going to ask what's the good news in all of this. It all sounds terrible, but I think you hit on an incredibly important issue that is not talked about enough in supposedly alternative independent media spaces, which is the incredible hubris of these people who genuinely believe that they can create these structures to govern and control the entire world. I think those structures will inevitably fail. They will not work. You cannot control 8 billion people. And you're right. Of course, the internet was created as a military information control structure by the U.S. military. The U.S. government was involved in it, of course. But yes, it was the great gamble. Well, we have to give them this, and then we'll control them all later. And I think there was a lot of hubris involved in this. Well, we have such incredible control over people's information and minds and oh, wait, no, they're talking with each other now. I really do think that there is an incredible change that has taken place over the past 20 years. I have lived that change. I know it to be taking place. It is an incredible time to be alive, and we are going to see some spectacular fireworks. There will be some, unfortunately, probably some dark times ahead, but I really do think this system is going to fail. It is designed to fail. So
it is.
I appreciate that perspective that you bring there. That wasn't a question, but if you want to wrap up with anything, please do.
But it's very important, and I think it's very, we have to say it, because a lot of people, when we talk about these things, it sounds like they are so powerful. And in some way they are powerful, but not that powerful.
Only the power that we give them with our mind, our attention, our compliance is what they have. And we have to stop giving them our compliance.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Incredibly important stuff. I hope people will, at the very least, follow the links to your articles so they can read more about this, and then start actually reading these documents, see what these globalists are actually saying. And as I noted at the beginning with my editorial on the globalist calendar, at that time, they were saying Summit of the Future was scheduled for September 2023. I note that they've already pushed it back to September 2024 now. I'm not sure why the year delay, but anyway, maybe their plans are not going according to plan. Can you imagine? They have miscalculated in their godly... They know everything, but they oops, we need another year. At any rate, we have another year reprieve before they unleash this on the world, right? At any rate, that's certainly time to get aware of this agenda.
I could comment that with... that they said 2023 in the beginning, because I read through some of the think tanks that was involved in this, and they said that some of the member states are a bit suspicious and they want more time, because I think they wanted to push this through. As the world was in a state of panic during the pandemic, it was easier to convince people. So now we have another year, and because it didn't work to get it through that fast. So
it goes to show, doesn't it? And that, I think, maybe there's a lesson. I was going to say, I think maybe there's a lesson there for the pandemic treaty. They're saying May 2024 at the next WHA World Health Assembly. We're going to push it for May 2024. But there's a very good chance that if there is enough political momentum against this process, it could be at the very least delayed, and hopefully delayed into inevitable failure. And that's something to work for as well, politically speaking.
And I think we have to, make people aware of this, our common agenda. And the documents are there. It's easy to obtain them and read them and everything. And United Nations, they claim that they want to have opinion of the people. But the thing is, if I ask 100 people on the street, what do you think about our common agenda? None of them will know anything about what our common agenda is.
Yeah.
So I think that's an important thing to do to inform about these plans and so that people can act upon it.
Exactly. We cannot oppose or go in the opposite direction of something we don't even know is happening until it's already happened, right? Exactly right. Okay, so let's inform people. Dr. Jakob Nordangård, an incredibly important conversation. You have lots and lots of things in your archive that are related to this. Direct people to your site once again. Tell us about your books and any other ways that people can follow you or find out more about your information.
I have my Substack that I publish all my articles, and I also have my books. I have one book in English that you mentioned, the Rockefeller Controlling the Game. It's a lot of a background to what's happening today, historical, and so I go through everything about the climate and energy policy, and a lot of things that you have also mentioned in your work. And I also have two other books that's about the pandemic, and also my latest is called The Digital World Brain, and it's about our common agenda. And this are translated and hopefully will be published in English soon. So I have all this information there. And I also have a YouTube channel that you can follow me and my work and listen to my interviews about this.
Excellent. All of those will be linked up in the show notes for people if they need the links, so that they will be there. Jakob Nordangård, I think there is probably a lot more to discuss about this agenda and the digital world brain and everything else, so I hope we get the chance to talk again in the future. But thank you for your time tonight. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much.